First, you must consider the shape of your cabochon. In this case, I have a little bit of an asymmetrical ovoid, so I'm going to go for something similar. This time it's going to be just a tad asymmetrical, rounded triangle. The first thing I'm going to do is to cut out that triangle. And then I recommend to do this on a lined sheet and just turn upside down the template every time you do this. First, draw your larger triangle on the sheet, then cut it out, after which cut out another one, leaving about 2 to 3 millimeters to the edge. Then flip that around again and cut a third one. Again, cut it out from the sheet, and then using the same idea, cut another one about 2 or 3 millimeters smaller. Now you will have 3 different templates that can be your 3 layers of clay, each with a different texture on and each with a slightly different color. Now let's first make the base one, and I am using here Helen Braille's texture stamps. I will give you all the links in the explanatory PDF. So I am doing the base one, making sure that I have the center of the sun rays right in what would be the middle. I'm tracing the contour of the template with the needle tool, after which I will be using the X-Acto knife to cut it out. And here you want to be pretty precise, and also you want to clean up the edges after you cut out your piece. And this will be the base piece. This one needs to be baked between tiles and papers so that you can be sure that it is absolutely flat. The thickness of the clay on this one should be medium. Do not go thicker because your pendant would become way too heavy and thick. So generally speaking, a 4 or a 5 on the Atlas, or pretty much any other one, would be the perfect one. You want to be about 1 millimeter, if not even a little bit thinner than that, on all 3 of the sheets practically. So in order to bake all this, you will need to place tile, paper, then your piece, then again a piece of paper, and the second tile. And you don't need to bake it more than 20 minutes at this point. For the middle, I'm going to use the jitterbug, and I'm trying to find a place where I have the most texture lines that would go around the edges, because this will be the one that you can pretty much see only the edges of. And the same as the other ones, I'm going to only place only trace with the needle first, and then use the X-Acto knife to cut out. The middle and the smallest one, I am not going to bake them yet, not until the main base larger one is baked. So you have to do the exact same thing. First cut it out from the textured clay, then make sure that your edges are perfectly clean, because this one you will not be able to sand to perfect edging. And then just put it aside and do the smaller one. And this one is the Good Vibrations, and I am choosing especially one of the 4 models that will again have a center and a lot of texture lines radiating outwards from the middle. And I do the exact same thing, tracing with the needle tool and then pretty much cutting it. On this one I'm using the rigid blade with a slight bend, and then I will refine the cut with the X-Acto knife. And the thing is, once your base is baked, wait, of course, wait until it is cool enough to touch and work with it. And we shall do a so-called fake bezel. It will be a model in which the cabochon is practically inside the other layers. But before doing that, I am going to first use my wax, and I am using on the bottom one the old silver of the metallic Art Alchemy waxes. Then on the middle one I will be using the Lucky Emerald, the vintage silk, and a little bit of the green brocade. I first tried just the green brocade, but it wasn't green enough. And then on the top, yes, on the middle, I also use as base the iron one of the metallic. And on the top, I'm going to use the new redesigned Prima Marketing silver, the diamond dust. The thing is, now let me explain you how you choose your colors. You want to have the bottom one of a lower shininess, but pretty much the same hue as the top one, while the middle one will have colors that are in the same range with the colors of your cabochon. So if I would have used a full blue tiger's eye, I would have used some blue colored waxes. And you can see that I am placing on the middle one various colors in various spots, so it wouldn't be fully the same color. You can do this also with just regular metallic / pearlescent acrylic paints, or with any other kind like the Inca Gold that has beautiful colors, especially because you're going to bake this, so it will be pretty much hardened and bonding with the polymer clay. Now watch how I'm going to make that sunk cabochon faux bezel. First of all, I'm going to, on the middle one, I'm putting some bake and bond on the back, and make sure that I smear it all over. Especially pay a lot of attention to the edges. The middle is not very important because you're going to cut it out anyway, but you have to pay a lot of attention on the edges. And if you have used wax or anything else, make sure that everything is dry before getting to this step. Then place it a little bit rotated, not in a exact distance from the edges. Then what you will do, you will try to smooth and blend a little bit the rays that are going, the texture lines that are going outwards. And you see I'm using first the etch and pearl and then a ball stylus to achieve this effect. And then you will do the exact same thing with the smallest one. You might have, in order to finish all the lines, you might have to switch between sculpting tools that are wider or smaller. And you'll do the same thing for the top one. Again, place it a little bit rotated, so the whole effect will be of an asymmetrical pendant, with the elements not conforming to any kind of symmetry or lining or coordination. Then place your cabochon about where you want it to be in the final pendant, and then cut out the shape of it. As you can see, I'm using the X-Acto knife to cut it out. Then don't use the needle. Sometimes it can work, but it depends a lot on what kind of media you have used to metallicize. And you don't actually even have to have it with a metal color. You can do in any kind of pearlescent. Then once you have done your cutout line perfectly, simply remove the inside of the cutout and then place the cabochon there. Of course, you will have to put a little bit of bacon bond on the cabochon itself. And then the thing is that, of course, the raw clay would have moved a little bit. So after you place your cabochon, gently pull the layers in, very, very gently, because you don't want to have any kind of distortion. After which you will do a little bit of blending of the lines, the same as you did for the edges. And again, I'm going to use my etch and pearl and my bowl stylus to achieve that. But the cabochon has to be hugged very nicely by these top two layers of the pendant. After which you bake it for half an hour. And it's enough because we will have more baking sessions after this. For the backing, I'm using again a sheet of clay that is on a medium thin setting, and I've used the jitterbug. Of course, placing some bacon band on the already baked clay, and also on the very edge, gently fold the backing over the edge to have a nice and smooth edge of the pendant without any lines or creases. And then once you have it all nicely folded, you can take your X-Acto knife and trim out the excess clay, after which you can use your roller to smooth, and of course you can also use some alcohol to smooth out. And then you will be using again your sculpting tool to extend a little bit the lines that are on the front of the base layer, so that your pendant would look more streamlined. After which you bake again for 15 minutes. You can apply the wax on it either before baking or after baking. In case you decide to apply it after baking, please wait until it is fully hardened before getting to the next step. So that would mean like at least 15 minutes. I would suggest more like 20 up to half an hour. If you have applied it before baking, then as soon as it's cool enough to the touch, you can go ahead and proceed to the next step. For the bail part, take a sheet of clay on the thickest setting on the pasta machine. Then texture it. I'm using here Donna Cato's largest texturing sponge. And then cut it as wide as you want your bail to be. I am using a copper tubing piece that I'm going to leave inside for the bail. And you don't have to use one of these. You can just simply use a roll of aluminum foil as baking blank. Then once you have rolled your bale, cut a V shape that would be about 2/3 of the length of the pendant. Make sure that it is the base of the V is a little bit smaller, less wide than the bale itself. Clean well the edges. And if you have smudged any of the texture, you can reuse the texturing sponge. After which you'll have to place some bake and bond on the back. And at this step, you must make sure that the wax on the backing of the pendant is fully hardened. After which, set your pendant to get the idea on how the bale will be set on it. Then fix it on the back of the pendant. Clean out any little defects and then use the texturing sponge to smooth nicely the edges of the V into the back of the pendant. Then cut even the ends of the rolled bale, after which you'll have to apply your wax before baking. In this case, I am simply using the same wax that I have used on the base pendant, and that is the old silver. Now let's embellish the bale. I will be using a thin sheet of polymer clay and the same texture that I used for the second layer, the one that's in the middle. And the same as for the second layer, I will be using the colors that match the colors of the cabochon to enhance the look of the texture. And then I will simply place some bake and bond on the back and wrap it on top of the bale in the very middle. Once your piece is fully baked, you might want to touch up on whatever areas need more touching up using the waxes or whatever other media you used to create your surface effects. And then just wait for everything to be dry and cured before proceeding to varnishing. For this specific pendant, I am using some homemade shellac varnish, but you can definitely use whatever other type of varnish you want. And depending, of course, on the type of media that you used to create the surface effects, you might even not have to use anything if you used only the art alchemy. In my case, because I used the redesign Prima Marketing wax, I decided that it was a good idea to actually varnish it. And because I didn't want just that top layer to be the shiniest of all, I varnished the whole piece. So this is how this piece is to be done, and this type of pieces that are completely asymmetrical and a combination. So essentially, these are the points that you need to take into consideration. The layers have to be kind of similar to the shape of the cabochon, but a little bit distorted. In this case, like my cabochon is ovoid, so it's completely round. So I did triangular shape that imitates a large base and a narrow opposite end of the cabochon, but in a different shape, and I also rounded it. And then as I showed you in the beginning, how you can create the slight asymmetry by using the flipping over of your template. I hope you enjoy making your pendant, and happy clean!